It was a festive night at the Nightclub in Birmingham. Music pulsed through the speakers, lights strobed across the dance floor, and more than 1,500 people gathered to celebrate Boxing Day 2022. For most, it was supposed to be a night of joy, a night of dancing and laughter. Among the crowd was Cody Fisher, a 23-year-old footballer and teacher, spending the evening with his girlfriend and friends. He was smiling, moving to the rhythm, and enjoying what should have been nothing more than a fun night out. But in seconds, everything changed. Screams cut through the music, panic rippled across the venue, and chaos exploded. A life was slipping away. What seemed at first like a random brawl was anything but. It had been planned. It had been plotted. And Cody Fisher, a young man with a bright future, was at the center of it. To understand this case, we need to go back to the beginning, to who Cody was and how an ordinary night spiraled into violence. Cody Fisher's life and character. Cody Fisher grew up in Redditch, Worcestershire, surrounded by a close-knit family and friends who adored him. From the very beginning, those around him saw something special. His mother, Tracy, often described him as kind-hearted and gentle, someone with a good soul. These weren't just words. Cody's life reflected them. Football was his passion. He progressed through the Birmingham City Youth Academy, a highly competitive environment that shaped his discipline and resilience. He went on to play for local clubs including Stratford Town, Stourbridge, and Bromsgrove Sporting. Coaches and teammates admired him for his calmness under pressure, his consistency, and his commitment. He wasn't flashy, but he was reliable, player you could trust, a teammate who respected the game as much as he loved it. Off the pitch, Cody's impact was just as profound. He worked as a physical education teacher, encouraging children to stay active, to believe in themselves, and to find joy in movement. Students and colleagues remembered his patience, his enthusiasm, and his ability to inspire without ever raising his voice. In the gym or classroom, Cody was a mentor as much as a teacher. His friends saw him as the light in the room, the one who cracked jokes, remembered birthdays, and lifted people up. To his girlfriend, Jess Chatwin, he was more than a partner. He was her best friend, her source of laughter, and the person she imagined a future with. His life was filled with love, family bonds, and a devotion to his dog. Just days before the tragedy, Cody spent Christmas surrounded by his loved ones, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Everything felt full of promise, that no one could have guessed that 2 days later, all of it would be shattered. The spark that ignited the conflict on Christmas Eve, December 24, 2022, Cody went to Pop World, a nightclub in Birmingham. The night was busy, the kind where people brushed past each other constantly. At some point, Cody accidentally brushed against another man, 23-year-old Remy Gordon. It was the kind of trivial contact that happens countless times in crowded clubs. Most people would ignore it, but not Gordon. Those who knew him described him as volatile, arrogant, and easily provoked. Instead of brushing it off, Gordon saw the moment as disrespect. He confronted Cody, looking for an apology or a reaction. But Cody, calm and confident, didn't rise to the bait. He hadn't done anything wrong, and he wasn't going to fuel the confrontation. He stood his ground without hostility, refusing to give Gordon the satisfaction he was looking for. To Gordon, that was unforgivable. A petty grievance began to fester into obsession. Later that night, after leaving Pop World, Gordon began sending messages on Snapchat. He shared Cody's picture in a private group, asking if anyone recognized him. He wasn't curious, he was hunting. In those messages, Gordon talked about knives, about sneaking weapons past security, about revenge. He joked about balaclavas. He plotted his next move. What should have been nothing more than a forgettable bump on a dance floor had turned, in Gordon's mind, into justification for violence. By Boxing Day, his plan was set. Boxing Day at the Nightclub, December 26, 2022. Boxing Day. The Nightclub in Birmingham was hosting a sold-out event featuring headliner DJ Marco Carolla. More than 1,500 people packed into the venue, excited to dance and celebrate the holiday season. The atmosphere should have been festive, but under the surface, something was wrong. Witnesses later described seeing groups of young men in the crowd who weren't dancing, weren't celebrating. They stood watching, waiting. The tension was noticeable, an undercurrent that made some uneasy. Security at the club was shockingly lax. Witnesses recalled being waved through without proper bag checks or pat-downs. It was a glaring failure, one that would prove devastating. Among those who slipped through were Remy Gordon and his associate, 22-year-old Cameron "Cammy" Carpenter. Gordon had recruited Carpenter into his vendetta. CCTV would later show the two arriving at the club, walking with purpose. They weren't there to party. They were there for Cody. Inside, Cody and Jess were enjoying the night, completely unaware of the danger around them. But Gordon and Carpenter stalked the crowd, weaving through people, watching Cody, waiting for the right moment. The attack had happened fast. Carpenter, wearing a mask, approached Cody near the dance floor. First came a slap, knocking Cody's phone from his hand. Then a sudden headbutt, vicious and deliberate. Cody staggered as the crowd began to shift. Unsure of what was happening, in seconds, Gordon and others surged forward. Punches and kicks rained down. One strike fractured Cody's jaw on both sides. To Jess, it looked like a robbery attempt. She grabbed his bag to protect it, not realizing that this was no mugging. It was a targeted attack. Then the knife appeared. Carpenter plunged it into Cody's chest. Another stab followed, this time to the leg. The violence was overwhelming, shocking in its speed and intensity. Jess turned and saw Cody collapse. Moments earlier, he had been smiling at her in the lights. Now he was on the floor, unmoving. She tried desperately to save him, rolling him into the recovery position, only to feel the handle of the knife still lodged in his chest. Her screams cut through the chaos. Security and paramedics rushed to help, but it was too late. Cody's injuries were catastrophic. On the dance floor of the Crane, surrounded by hundreds of people, Cody Fisher was pronounced dead. Gordon and Carpenter slipped away into the night, leaving devastation in their wake. The investigation, the Crane nightclub, was immediately turned into a crime scene. Hundreds of witnesses had been inside. West Midlands police faced the daunting task of piecing together the events. CCTV from the club and surrounding streets became crucial. Witnesses described groups of men loitering near the dance floor, their behavior lining up with the video evidence. Forensic teams scoured the blood-stained dance floor. The knife, still lodged in Cody's chest when medics found him, was removed and secured as evidence. Outside the club, investigators discovered the sheath of the weapon on Adderley Street. DNA testing matched it to Carpenter. Meanwhile, CCTV from nearby areas revealed even more. Gordon was caught on camera at a pizza shop shortly after the attack, mocking and laughing about what had just happened. The digital trail was equally damning. Gordon's phone contained the Snapchat messages where he plotted revenge. The messages revealed intent, planning, and motive. This was not a spontaneous fight. It was premeditated. Within 2 days, police were ready to act. On December 28th, officers raided a Birmingham flat and arrested Gordon. Carpenter was caught in London, hours before boarding a flight to Jamaica. A third man, 19-year-old Reagan Anderson, was also arrested. In total, 7 suspects were taken in, 3 on suspicion of murder and 4 for assisting offenders. Trial and justice. The case moved quickly toward trial, but for Cody's family, nothing felt fast enough. His mother, Tracy, became a fierce advocate, calling the killers pathetic cowards and demanding tougher penalties for those who carry knives. Her grief was raw, unrelenting. She described it as a wound that never heals, like being stabbed through the heart. She couldn't bring herself to enter Cody's bedroom, which now stood frozen in time. In early 2024, the trial began at Birmingham Crown Court. It lasted 10 weeks. The prosecution laid out the timeline, from the Christmas Eve altercation, to the Snapchat plotting, to the Boxing Day attack. CCTV, forensic evidence, witness statements, and digital records painted a clear picture. Carpenter may have delivered the fatal stab, but Gordon was the orchestrator. He had initiated the conflict, plotted the ambush, and driven it forward. His mocking behavior afterward sealed the jury's impression. When the verdict came, justice was delivered. Gordon, 23, was found guilty of murder and affray. He received a life sentence with a minimum of 26 years. Carpenter, 22, was also convicted of murder and sentenced to life with a minimum of 25 years. Anderson was acquitted of murder and manslaughter but convicted of affray and released on license. Others arrested for assisting offenders were released without murder charges. Legacy: the Crane nightclub's license was suspended indefinitely. Questions about security failures dominated headlines. Across the football community, tributes poured in. Cody's former clubs remembered him not only as a talented player, but as a kind and gentle soul. That Cody's death became part of a larger national conversation about knife crime in the UK. Families, communities, and politicians debated how to address the epidemic of violence that had claimed yet another young life. For Cody's loved ones, the loss is permanent. For his mother, his girlfriend Jess, his friends, his students, the absence remains heavy. Yet his story continues to inspire calls for change. Cody Fisher's life was cut short by arrogance, ego, and senseless violence. But his memory lives on in the people who loved him, in the children he taught, in the teammates who played beside him, and in a community that refuses to forget. What do you think about this case? Did justice prevail? Should nightclub security and knife laws change in response to tragedies like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe Cody's story should be remembered, share this video. Behind every headline is a family forever changed. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop seeking the truth.